So anyways, this was quite a journey putting this place together. It's about 4 years in the making to get us over here from where we were getting kicked out at the convention center. And one of our great partners here, Create TV, and a lot of their resources went into building the place. And we have other great partners here. Like if you get a chance to go up in the gallery at the front of the building, there's Chopsticks Alley Art, which is up there. And then Works, which is right here. And then there's other organizations in the house, like San Jose Spotlight with journalism, and other arts organizations that are going to come in just for individual events and workshop rooms and such that we can also lease out if we need to for events like this. If we get a bigger audience and there's way too much art in the way, which we're just at the edge of that right now, but we really wanted to show the show and have it amongst art as we had back in the day. So follow us online, worksanjose.org or worksSJ.org, either one gets you there. And then of course, find us on Facebook, Work San Jose, all one word, and find us on Instagram, Work San Jose, all on one word. And I don't know why we're still on Twitter, but the same thing. So anyways, thanks for coming out. I'm gonna give to you now the president of Poetry Center San Jose. Oh, by the way, my name's Joe. I'm the president of Works, so hi. I'm gonna give to you the president of Poetry Center San Jose, Mr. Rob Pesich. All right.
Thank you. President Joe Miller. And thank you all for coming tonight to make this a very special event for the community and for Red Wheelbarrow. And want to extend just briefly special thanks Stephanie Stein and then Daryl Dela Cruz. Stephanie and I think Daryl are in Zoom. Then there's Cynthia White, and she's out there in the back in the red, the lady in red delivering the books. And also Elizabeth Jimenez Montelongo, and also Cesar Kent earlier. These were our readers for this contest. Special thanks to Daryl for the numbers, doing the analytics. I want to thank Juan, Felipe, Herrera for his very generous comments on the poems and taking the time to judge these submissions. And a big round of applause here to Professor Ken Weisner for delivering this project again. And I want to thank again Works San Jose Art and Performance Center, Joe Miller, and the staff for their continued support for Well Read. Every month, second Tuesday of the month. And we'll get to it now because we have a lot of East Coast people. And next month, you can come to Well Read, and we will have Ray Guiron, who is a featured reader out from Woodland. And she will be reading from her latest collection, Little Hour. It's going to be a great show. Oh, at the podium. Yeah. Oh, there we are. Oh my gosh, I got my head chopped off there. Thank you, Joe. All right. And so without further ado, I want to give it to Ken Weisner to introduce our first guest. We have Stephen Kuusisto.
I do, at best. Well, so I want to thank everybody for being here. That hybrid Zoom is a first time for us. It's very exciting. And Joe Miller, the technology, like right now, for those of you in Zoom, I'm looking out at a full house and a beautiful gallery space full of amazing art. And then at the same time, if I look over here, there's 60 of you out in that audience who are fantastic. And so there's a kind of a cool divided self arrangement, but it's kind of a more the merrier situation, and we're delighted that we can do this. Just admitting a few people from the waiting room in here. I'd like to thank, as I did in the chat just now, for those of you in Zoom, I'd like to chat, just like Rob did, to thank our screeners who read 1,500 poems this summer, and then Juan Felipe Herrera, who I believe is out there somewhere in Zoomland, read 30 of them. And then we have 2 of our 3 winners are with us tonight, chosen from those 1,500 people or 1,500 poems, which has been very exciting for us. So you'll get to hear from them in about 40 minutes. I'd also like to say that in the chat, and for those of you here in the audience, you can now download the book itself as a PDF if you want to follow along in that way, or you can, of course, get the book at the back where Cynthia is sitting, so that we have the print copy, the PDF copy available to you. And anybody who wants to buy the book, including those in Zoomland, I put instructions on how to do that in the chat. We have people who come up from Southern California, people who are joining us online from the East Coast. We're starting a little bit late, so I just want to get straight to those people who are up past their bedtime. I can see a few of them in Zoom right there. It's 10 o'clock and maybe they're already in their pajamas. So we'll do the reading. It'll probably be about 10 minutes off from the program you have. I'd also like to thank my students in ERIT 1B. Would you guys all raise your hands? There are probably about 10 of them here. They're just fantastic students. I inflicted wild poetry upon them, and they read it, and they were interested in all manner of poetry. And I think it's beautiful that the course has come full circle. They also wrote about the election. They wrote about another beautiful book that we read together. But now this is where we started 3 months ago. So I hope they enjoy seeing the writers, and in some cases shaking their hands, or in some cases they'll be introducing people tonight. And they're great. So the first person I'd like to welcome is Stephen Kuusisto. And Stephen holds a university professorship at Syracuse University, and is the author of the memoirs Have Dog Will Travel, The Poet's Journey, A Poet's Journey, Planet of the Blind, and the poetry collections Only Bread, Only Light, Letters to Borges, and Old Horse, What Is to Be Done, and I believe a new one forthcoming from Copper Canyon. So as several of you tonight, including our first prize winner, Claudia, you have this ability to write great prose and great poetry, and something I think we can all love and admire. So welcome Steve Kuusisto, and he'll be joining us in Zoom.
Hey, thanks, Ken. And thank you everyone for joining this via Zoom and being there in person. What a wonderful evening, and what a great group of students Ken has the privilege of working with, and what a marvelous magazine Red Wheelbarrow is. I'm going to read 3 poems, and I'm going to be quick about it because we have a lot of wonderful work to get to tonight. This first one is called Unpredictable. I wrote it in Finnish and then translated it backwards into English. And so from my perspective, one of the things about it is that it doesn't really feel like a native English poem at all. It's a bit let's say frisky and odd in the way it puts things together. This is called Unpredictable. It says, blind, I imagine the butterflies, mornings so clear, as if Buddha has washed my windows. Of course, I want to telephone my dead mother, tell her about tiny, transparent, flying specks of sun. Instead, I draw circles on a birch with my finger. The marks say, land here, my friends. So there's that. And then the second poem is called Thinking of Lewis Simpson. Poets of a certain age, which is to say probably over 50, who studied poetry, say 30, 40 years ago, remember Lewis Simpson. He was a award-winning American poet. He was part of that World War II generation of poets that included people like Philip Booth and Randall Jarrell, many others who fought in World War II. I really admired his work and read it assiduously. And when I was a graduate student at the University of Iowa, I got a chance to host a party for him. He came to read his poems, and I was very tongue-tied. I wanted to tell him how much I loved his poetry, but he was one of those men who'd gone to the war, and he was important in poetry, and I was just this little whippersnapper exulting over his poetry. And he kind of gave me what we all know of as the stink eye. He did. He looked at me like I was a bit of a twerp. So that's the backstory of this poem. Thinking of Lewis Simpson. I was too blind for the army, so I stayed home with a radio. Remember those pressure hoses in gas stations? They set off chimes when tires rolled over. America, Boy Scouts, flags, and me, sightless. I tried telling you how I loved your poems. What a veteran presence you had. I was the boy who leaned close, the zenith hot. Yes, I'm coming to the point. And this third poem is a riff off of course, Allen Ginsberg. You'll recognize the riff. It's a little cri de coeur, a cry of the heart. The disabled in America still struggle with the right to be included all across society. They are still horrifically unemployed. This poem is a shout back to the kind of normativity that leads to reckless ableism and the diminishment of disabled people. It references young Dr. Mengele's. That was not a gratuitous line. You may know that the San Francisco City Jail is the largest psychiatric hospital in the United States. In the last decade alone, people of color, disabled people have been sterilized in that prison complex. Disabled people have been sterilized or neutered, as the case may be, in multiple settings. Lawsuits have happened. So when I mention the young Dr. Mengele's, it's not gratuitous. This is a hot poem. It's angry. America, with your history of eugenics, with your hostility to the Global Charter on Disability Rights, with your jails stocked with psychiatric patients, worse than the Soviet Union. We are Gulag Los Angeles, Gulag Rikers Island, Gulag 5 Points in upstate New York. America, with your young Dr. Mengele's, with your broken Veterans Administration, with your war on food stamps and infant nutrition, with your terror of autism and lack of empathy for those who have it, with your 80% unemployment rate for people with disabilities, with your pity parties, inspiration porn, Billy was broken until we gave him a puppy, with your sanctimonious low drivel disguised as empathy, with your terror of reasonable accommodations, with your NPR essays about fake disability fraud, which is derision of the poor and elderly, with your disophobia, I wouldn't want one of them to sit next to me on a bus. America, when will you admit you have a hernia? When will you admit you're a lousy driver? Admit you miss the days of those segregated schools, hospitals, residential facilities. Just keep them out of sight. When will you apologize for your ugly laws? When will you make Ron Kovic's book irrelevant? America, you threatened Allen Ginsberg with lobotomy. America, you medicated a generation of teenagers for bipolar depression when all they were feeling was old-fashioned fear. When will you protect wheelchairs on airlines? When will you admit you're terrified of luck? So thank you. Apologies to Allen Ginsberg, but I had to get that off my chest. Thanks for listening.
Red clothes. desktop group, zoom.us.
James McCorkle. James McCorkle's poetry collections include Evidences, The Subtle Bodies, and In Time. He co-directs the Africana Studies program at Hobart and William Smith Colleges in Geneva, New York. He's an active critic of policing and carceral systems. My students love this poem he's about to read. Welcome, James.
Thank you, Ken. It's wonderful to be here. I'm reading from upstate New York, near some of the gulags that Stephen just spoke of in the Finger Lakes region, on the traditional lands of the Haudenosaunee, or the people of the Western Gate, otherwise known as the Seneca peoples. So I am going to read the poem that is in the current and wonderful edition of Red Wheelbarrow. A little backstory or background. Troy Davis was wrongfully executed in 2011 after being convicted in 1989 in Savannah, Georgia, for a murder of an off-duty police officer. Troy Davis, executed September 21st, 2011, speaks on September 22nd, 2011. I said I was innocent, not by reason or doubt, but innocent. No defense, I had none, until too late, when mockingbirds sang, too late, recantations of what was signed under threat, too late, the letters after all the saying made my claim. And you who are writing this, thinking you could be me, I was not, by order of the state, not worthy of saving. And you writing this, believing you are free to do so, or reading this, what are you thinking? That you could chew the leather of my shoes and know where I walked, know how I ran before the shots were fired from a weapon never found. Instead, they found me. No, I found myself. For them, gave them my life to hold and protect for all that I was. But they saw I was nothing, a meager bit of skin to slice into endless halves, to reach nothing left where I started from in their eyes that never looked to God in supplication or weariness. And I am I not a man waiting his execution? And that now done, I am a man waiting at the right hand of my God who abandoned me to gather me up. And you, what will be the forgiveness extended in the valleys you walk through to reach here, the sun stranded in orchard trees, crows, rocking on the branches, the shadows long across the valleys. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Naya. I'm one of the students of Professor Weisner's work 1B class. And today I'm going to be introducing Rose Black. So Rose Black's poetry has been widely published, and she's the author of 3 books, Clearing, Winterlight, and Greenfield. Rose
Desktop
teaches
map.
poetry
Work
at
stop
Salinas
video
Valley
button.
State Prison, advocates for incarcerated writers, and is one of the founders of Right to Write Press, a nonprofit which promotes the growth of immersion writers who are incarcerated in California state prisons. She'll be reading a selection of inmate poems published in this year's Red Wheelbarrow. Welcome and thank you so much, Rose.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you. And thank you, Ken and Stephen and James. I was very moved by your poetry. And thank you as well. So Ken and I and Lisa Sharnock and Julie Murphy have been teaching at Salinas Valley State Prison for many years now. This prison is just north of Soledad in Monterey County. And we don't go there anymore in person. We take turns emailing lessons to facilitators who bring these poems to our A-Yard workshop. So it's not ideal, but it's something, and it's very nurturing and nourishing for both the inmates and the teachers. One of the new additions to the workshop, who is very enthusiastic, has a poem on page 115. It's called Nightfall. And this poet's name is Abel Nongare, and this is his poem. Nightfall, running, falling, slipping, wind blowing, rain falling, friends, can't get back home, darkness all over. So the prisoners are transferred frequently, but if a student is committed to his work and to our program, we continue to mentor him. One such student is Ubaldo Teque Jr. He's from Guatemala, but was raised mostly in Los Angeles. He left Guatemala when he was 5 years old. His first collection of poems and essays were published by Right to Write Press in 2020. And the name of this book is Niño Inmigrante, and you can get it on Amazon. And Mr. Teque just won first place in the California Prison Poetry Contest. His winning poem, Fragments, is on page 138, and I'd like to read that to you. Fragments. Chipped gray and white stones lay on the path in front of my hogar back in Guate, sharp and close to my bare feet as I walked or jogged. Dark gray stones, heavy like a rim slug, were the ammunition for my slingshot. I helped stones relocate by shooting them at hungry foxes and dogs. To my ancestors, stones were Earth's jewelry, hot and shiny on blistering days, icy and delicate at night. Here in my cell, I have a small dirt-clothed rock keeping me company, a gift from the Creator. It spoke to me while I was strolling the track. I caress and talk to this stone on depressing days. I let it know my desire for freedom because we're both hard-boiled and contained to one place for long periods of time. So finally, I'd like to showcase 3 drawings by Miss Jessica Diana Garza. And this these begin with Goldfish Bowl, page 123. You can see this. And beside it, she writes, oh, it's a self-portrait. I do want to mention that. And she is such a gifted artist, and she has drawn many self-portraits and many, and depicts a lot of prison life in her work. So this is what she writes about this drawing. New prison inmate arrivals, thinking of prison fish, a lonely lost soul inside a fishbowl. Okay, we can go to the next one. The next drawing after this. The title of this drawing is A Bad Idea. And this is a depiction of what would happen if Miss Garza were able to obtain a gun. And I'm in the interest of time, I won't read you what she's written here. Okay, the next one. Okay, this drawing is mangoes, and I'll read you part of what she says about mangoes. You can read the full thing in your book on page 126. She writes, as a troubled child and transgender girl, my mother, a Jewess, taught me to conquer fear and all life's troubles and evils through ancient ritual consisting of mangoes and a special and secretive deep meditation that saved my young life and brought me home. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Leah, and I'm one of the students from the ERITS 1B class. And today I'm going to be introducing Gabriella Gutiérrez Imus. Dr. Gabriella Gutiérrez Imus is a poet and professor in modern languages and women and gender studies at Seattle University. Gabriella is the author, editor of several poetry collections. Last year, she co-edited in Xochitl and Cuito, a bilingual poetry anthology of Chicano X and Latinx poetry, published in 2021 in Madrid, Spain. And another multi-genre Latinx women's anthology, Indomitables, and forthcoming with San Diego State University Press. Her latest collection, How Many Indians Can We Be?, was published with Flower Song Press 2022 and is reviewed in this issue of Red Wheelbarrow. Welcome, Gabriella.
Thank you so much. Let me see, okay. Okay, can you hear me? Yes, okay. Hello, I'm ever so grateful to Ken Weisner for making me one of the featured poets. He is one of my saints, and I've known him for about 25, 30 years since I was reading in Celebration of the Muse in Santa Cruz. That's when I met him. But I just want to thank you so much because, and all of you who work in prisons, and for you to be dedicating this time to prisoners and our book continuously and their writings. I'm so grateful and for always looking at the other. Thank you, Ken. I'm going to start by reading one of the short poems in the book, Certainty. My dog fears the pungent smell of abandonment. Yet people die alone, forgotten, betrayed, and despised, or simply ignored daily. Some killed by indifference, seen as the products of forgetfulness, of minimalist waste, of relationships gone badly, not having found the mine of love we all search for, the El Dorado of relationships, the eternal salts of rebirth all relationships require. In my mind, I drive across mountains to nowhere, simply to look for the somewhere of certainty dogs already possess. I want to read, there's several of my poems you can read on your own, but I want to read one of my favorite poems in the collection that is reviewed in the Red Wheelbarrow. How many Indians can we be? ¿Cuántos indios podemos ser? Which is totally bilingual. The last poem is not translated. It appears in English and Spanish because it's called translanguaging, traslenguar. And it's really, we have disrespected Spanish by saying Spanglish all these years, but there really is a name for what we Chicanos do, which is to speak in both languages on a regular basis at the same time. Translanguaging, and it's for Ofelia Garcia. She is a major researcher from New York University that gave us that term. Because I speak with my imagination, you stopped listening to me centuries ago, porque hablo con mi imaginación y no mi lengua, me dejaste de escuchar hace siglos. Translanguaging is not Spanglish. Translenguar no es español, sino un carnaval de palabras florido y resonante en todos mis existentes lenguajes. It's not fully having the specific words university specialists would use to say the same thing I mean in all my languages. Déjame ser comprendido en formas que no habías imaginado, porque hablo con mi imaginación. Translenguar no es español únicamente, sino una lengua con pilón. No es tener las palabras específicas que los especialistas académicos utilizarían para decir lo mismo que te quiero decir en mis lenguas bajas. En algún momento marginales, pochas, cortadas con los dientes, cut with my teeth, pero que sin embargo pegan su chicle en el universo. Las palabras que no sé tienen color en otra lengua, colores semióticos, colores feudales, colores ambientales, colores maternales. Si te digo, ok, es porque mi corazón estuvo en África. Jazz, jam, merengue y mojo colorean mi espíritu en África Occidental y me enseñaron a comer serpiente y adorarla a la vez. Jazz, jam, merengue, and mojo color my spirit in West Africa and taught me to eat serpent and adore it at the same time. Si te digo mis placeres, jambo, mambo, gambo, marimba, es porque la música de África pasó de los huesos a la lengua y contaminó mi espíritu políglota. El suajile llegó en un safari de palabras, en mi profundo carnaval de sentimientos. Swahili arrived in a safari of words, in my profound carnival of senses. And I don't know if I have time for another one or that's my dog. Am I done? I think I used up my 3 minutes, no? Yes, no?
I don't know. Is it a short one?
Yeah, not too long. This is called Once I Was a Guitar or Huehuecoyotl. In Aztec mythology, Huehuecoyotl is the pre-Columbian god of music, dance, mischief, and song. He's the patron of uninhibited sexuality. Once I was an incandescent guitar and they played my body and I played my body with silly poems and hair strings. The strings of my hair were strong and luminescent. They made multiple interminable notes, notes that only he could hear, Huehuecoyotl, in his universe of varied and unforgettable instruments. Once I was a trumpet in the Sonora Santanera rhythms, and Gato Barbieri made me invent innovative stories for my literary horn. Sigala would know. And once all my musics put together made Africa sing, North Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, the Africa de carne y hueso, the Africa of voices and haircuts, the Africa of indiscernible colors, those inside the notes of a song, inside the undiscovered water, inside the hearts of babies who drool soul and justice. It is the Africa we still have not dared to meet because our blindness is hidden under the ocean of libraries without Africans. Today, I'm no longer a stringed instrument or a horn. Today, I am you who reads these notes to your melody and sings on, inventing the melody of you. The world can identify. We are, after all, instruments in the desert until someone plays or hears our unimaginable song. Thank you so much.
Hello all, my name is Poria. I am also a student of Professor Weisner's ERID 1B class. And today I wanted to introduce the work of Ralph James Savarese. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. Ralph James Savarese is the author of 2 books of prose and 3 books of poetry. He is also the author of a chapbook of ekphrastic poems in response to the paintings of Lily Woodward called Did We Make It? He lives in Iowa, and welcome, Ralph. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank Ken and everyone else who helped put the volume together and tonight's event as well. My mother died in September of this year, and I'm going to read just one poem. I've got a bunch of them for her. This one is shortly after. I think all you need to know is that she liked to bowl, and we would go bowling together, and she would talk trash. My poor, very poor bowling skills. So this poem is called Pin Setter. Into the throat of a child, you sent your slender fingers to retrieve the devil's bowling ball, a piece of hard candy. The child, me, was blue and in the gutter. When the ball emerged as if by magic, you went inside to pour yourself a drink, Campari and soda. The damn thing was bigger than your head. You're not an African rock python, for God's sake. Thanks, Mom, I replied, releasing another fireball into my mouth. What is motherhood but a kind of rack and hood return? The child gets another chance. Memory works like this too, or tries to, with its invisible fingers, especially now that you are gone. Of course, I'm an African rock python, Mom. The heart will accommodate just about anything, even a red-hot cinnamon absence. Later, darkness lodged in the sky, and the moon, that diligent pin setter, went about writing the pines. Thanks very much.
Hi, everyone. I am also one of Professor Ken's students. And today I'm so happy to be introducing Andrew Gent. He lives in New Hampshire, where he works as a writer and information architect. His first book, Explicit Lyrics, won a Miller Williams Poetry Prize and is available from the University of Arkansas Press. Welcome, Andrew.
Thank you. Thanks to everyone. The poems, the poetry reading is great, and thank you to Ken and Steph for they've taken a couple of poems. Just a slight introduction. I write various projects, and these two poems came from a project where I was writing about different, essentially vacation and tourist events. Some real, some imaginary, most of them a little bit of both. The two poems are kind of short, so I'll just read both of them if that's okay. First one's called Beginning of the Boat Trip. In the beginning, we were all happy enough. The guide told us to keep our hands inside the boat. The man in the green coat and white hat was not paying attention, or refused to accept instruction from the likes of a farmhand dressed as a bank guard. Bad to worse, the woman sitting next to him might be his wife, or a complete stranger for all she cared. He did not speak the entire time, or show any recognition of the natural wonders they were about to be exposed to. The trip, when appropriate rules are observed, is entirely safe and lasts, we are informed, approximately 45 minutes. Several members of the party are considering what else they might have done with the time. The second poem is called Bottomless Pit. Everything has a name, including the nothing next to the roadway you can look into and see nothing but darkness. Of course, there is something down there, but what is in doubt? We assume years of rocks and pennies thrown by curious grade schoolers and delinquent parents showing off, poised, hand to ear, awaiting the inevitable clatter that proves them both right and wrong. Thank you.
So the next reader, Vincent Mowrey's home base is Ventura, California, but he travels in his van and writes poems from obscure campsites. And this is going to be a great book of poems someday. He's an accomplished prose writer as well. Recent work has appeared in The Sun. Thank you, Vinny, for driving the van up here to read us a couple poems, and welcome.
I'm traumatized from driving in San Jose just to get here. I'm not used to big cities. I do love these obscure campsites. I find them very inspiring for different moods, different emotions. This first one was written outside of Pinnacles National Park, not far from here. It has a rather lonely voice. It's called My Friends, the Cows Have Given Up on Me. They plea in their brows, says, come on, man, come on. They stand at the fence, but I got nothing. I pull my pockets inside out, nothing. One by one, they turn to join the line. The last follows the first over the hill. Not one takes one last look or even pauses. I stand at the fence. I'm sorry, friends. Goodbye. Different spot, different mood. This is called Part of a Painting. Written in the remote part of Santa Barbara County called Cuyama Valley. So painterly, the view up canyon. Am I in the painting? Have I some function in a composition? Do wild eyes see and wonder what purpose he serves, that man in his van? Part of a painting sounds fine. Just daub me in there in the corner. Inconsequential brush stroke ink slash in a Chinese scroll. Make me a boatman crossing the River Dow. I'm here. I'm fine. I love you. Stick figure standing on water, steering a raft, raising a stick hand to say hello. Thank you.
Wow.
Hello, hello. Yeah, my name is Cameron. I'm also a student from Mr. Weisner's class. I'm going to be introducing Sarah Rabkin, who's the author and illustrator of What I Learned at Bug Camp, Essays on Finding a Home in the World. After teaching and writing environmental studies at UC Santa Cruz for more than 30 years, she now works as a freelance editor and workshop leader. She's seeking a publisher for the Quiet Activist, Healing the World by Doing What You Love, which is excerpted in this issue. So yeah, everybody welcome Sarah.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Gabriella, I can see you on the screen. Can you put your thumb up if you can hear me? Muchas gracias. Okay. Thank you, Cameron. Thank you, everybody. It's really an honor to be here, and I want to have long conversations with so many of you, with Stephen about Louis Simpson, whose daughter was my childhood best friend as it happened, and with Vincent about your wonderful essay I read in the Sun, and also the Cuyama Valley, which has a big place in Chuck's and my heart, and with so many of you. I wish I could be there in person. So it's an honor to be included in this event and in this beautiful issue of Red Wheelbarrow, and especially to be there alongside my dear friend Andie Thrams and her stunning artwork. And Andie will be following me to show you some of that work and talk about it. So as Cameron said, my piece in the issue is excerpted from a book manuscript I finished last spring called The Quiet Activist, Healing the World by Doing What You Love. And this excerpt is from a chapter that's about how creative change makers deal with blocks of various kinds. And this section specifically looks at how we need to honor our sorrows. Visual artist Andie Thrams grew up in the 1950s and 60s in the Oakland Hills of the San Francisco Bay Area, rambling unsupervised with her brother around the slopes and thickets surrounding her neighborhood. Inspired by her parents' love of gardening and the antic diversity of the local vegetation, a jumble of indigenous and introduced species, where palm trees mingle with redwoods, eucalyptus with coast live oaks. She developed a love of plants that has suffused the subsequent decades of her life. Plants became the focus of Thrams' vocation as a professional artist. She worked initially as a botanical illustrator and graphic designer, featuring graceful portraits of poppies, lupins, and other native flora on elegant note cards, calendars, and posters. Later, when producing images for commercial publication became too constraining, she turned to painting and making handmade books. Taking the financial leap into a fully committed artist's life, she began to work primarily outdoors, carrying art supplies on foot or by kayak into remote areas, many days travel from trailheads and roads. Her greatest love was for wild forests, where she would settle in for days, absorbing loamy fragrances, woody presences, and intricate mosaics of ground level vegetation. In some of her paintings, the massive bases of ancient Sitka spruce and giant sequoia trunks rise backlit against illuminated undergrowth. Ferns, berries, and yellow violets glow in beams of filtered sunlight. Besides ink and watercolor, she now began to incorporate mixed media, integrating bits of the forest itself into her paintings, sketching with twigs, and making paint with natural pigments she collected in the woods. Images mingled at times with musings in handwritten text. Then came heat, drought, and choking smoke. Great green swaths of western woods turned tinder brown as temperatures rose, streams dried up, and hordes of tree-boring insects were suddenly liberated from the cyclical die-offs formerly imposed by winter chill. Where fuels had mounted during centuries of fire suppression, desiccated forests succumbed to massive, super hot blazes, some ignited by lightning, others by faulty electrical equipment, or arson, or human carelessness. The woods began burning year-round, rendering obsolete the once reliable expectation of an annual fire season. Researchers estimate that between 2010 and 2019, the ravages of development, pollution, and climate change killed 147 million trees in California alone. Between 2012 and 2021, fires burned 1 of every 8 acres in the state. Thrams had always known that human activity threatened the forests she loved. Now, faced with the scorching and withering of habitats that had nourished her spirit, she found herself painting in eerie orange light under darkened skies, carrying the acrid sense of countless tons of vaporized landscape, wafting sometimes from hundreds of miles away, sometimes from the next drainage over. So I'm going to let Andie take it from here and show you some of the work that I referred to here and tell you more about her process.
Okay, Sarah, gosh, thank you. Sarah and I have enjoyed decades of friendship, and it's quite moving to hear you read that and to be included in this book. And this evening, thank you, Ken. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I'm going to see if I can share my screen. And can everyone see this?
Mhm.
Good.
Yep.
I will start playing it. So I am Andie Thrams, and I'm a painter and a book artist. And I'd like to share a little bit about what I do. So this is home in the Sierra Nevada foothills. The outdoors is my studio, and here are some of the toys that I work with.
Oh, it's very nice.
A lot of my work explores biophilia, our deep tendency to delight in what is alive. I almost always work in forests. Sometimes I go out for a few hours or a day, but the very best is when I'm able to be out there for days or weeks at a time.
Jeez.
It's a powerful experience to work in faraway places. And yet, for a while now, my delight in painting in the wilds has been overshadowed by the increasing devastation that Sarah so eloquently described just now. So many dead and dying trees, so many wildfires, so much smoke and ash. So very sad. So during the pandemic isolation days in early 2020, my despair just was overwhelming, and I wondered how I might grapple with my sadness, maybe through an art process. And I decided to explore solastalgia, a word recently coined to describe personal grief resulting from habitat loss.
Oh.
I wondered what it would be like to paint in burned and green forests in direct response to this sadness, and the idea to make forest prayer flags arose. The ancient practice of prayer flags hanging in the outdoors originated in Southeast Asia, where it's believed that winds carry the blessings depicted on prayer flags over the landscape to all beings. I decided to work with black ink, which felt in alignment with my emotions, and I designed a setup that I could take into faraway places. And I'm going to see, I don't know if you guys are seeing I'm not going to worry about it. Never mind. So I began painting my forest prayer flags in Sequoia National Park during the pandemic summer of 2020 as wildfires darkened skies throughout the West. My process is simple. I pack up my gear, I walk into the forest, and I sit down on the ground. I express gratitude that I'm able to be in the presence of wildness and beauty. I ask that my energies and those of the forest entwine as I work. I invoke hope that what I do may be towards the protection of all forest beings. And I paint. I pause regularly to invite the full spectrum of emotions into the work. And I am often very sad. Part of the project involves research and interviews with forest scientists to learn more about how climate change is affecting our forests in the West and what actions may be helpful. The amazing surprise is that inviting grief into my creative work has rekindled hope and delight. And sharing prayer flags seems to energize others too. Embracing sadness can actually kindle deep joy. May the winds carry blessings of healing and resilience throughout the forest and beyond. Thank you, everyone, especially you, Sarah and Ken. And for sharing my work with the world. I'm honored to be part of this book and this evening, and I invite involvement in this project. So find me out there and get in touch if you're curious and interested.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Asha. I'm a student of Professor Weisner. Award-winning poet Charles Atkinson's most recent volume, Poems New and Selected, was published in fall 2022 by Hummingbird Press. He lives in Santa Cruz County with his wife, writer and teacher Sarah Rabkin.
Thank you very much for that introduction. And, I feel like after the scale and scope of these attentions to the natural world, to the inner world. I want to start with, I'm going to read just two poems, two little ones, because we're falling considerably behind. But I'm going to read, the first one I'm going to read you is actually a found poem. I have to confess that this is a tape of my granddaughter at age 4 in the back seat of her mom's car. So it's really quite untouched except for line breaks. The first line of this poem is actually supposed to be the epigraph. So it should be read with italics. What shape is a kiss? Eloise, age 4, from her polka dot car seat. I think, Mama, a kiss is a little bit tinier than a bacteria. If we look at a kiss under a 14,180 strong of a microscope, I wonder if we'll see a little ball or something, a fuzzy ball or a spiky ball. I want to be a scientist when I grow up. Or now. I want to be a scientist now. When I'm 4, I want to be a halfway taught one and a medium taught one when I'm 5. And when I'm 6 years old, full taught. Can you help me learn some stuff now, actually? Another short poem. This one is called, Is This How? Is this how I'm filing taxes? Simple math, reading a line of instructions. Then it's a page of numbers that make no sense. Computation whose point I've lost. Early sun creeps over the table, gilds the scratch pads, lights up workshops. Out there, traffic, yard birds gleaning seeds in patterns that might be runes. This chain of numbers must lead somewhere. I loathe the self that can't see clearly. I've been capable too, and know I'm at the mercy of something large. Absence itself, its chunks of memory calving off the polar shelf. Brittle hands have gripped my own, even as they let me go. Now I don't know these words, these numbers. They snap into meaning when they choose. Between them, vacancy stretches out. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Eric. I'm also a student of Professor Weisner, and I will be introducing David Denny. Poet and fiction writer David Denny stories have recently appeared in Narrative, New Ohio Review, and Catamaran. His books include Sometimes Only the Sad Songs Will Do, The Guild Man in Purgatory, and Some Divine Commotion. Welcome to David Denny.
Thanks, Eric. Hello, everybody. I hope you can hear me okay. I'm so delighted to be included and so happy to follow Charles Atkinson. Hi, Charles, whose poems have brought me such delight through the years. I'm a big fan, Charles, and I'm so happy about your new book. Well, the poem I'm going to read is from this issue, and it's a kind of ekphrastic that begins with a reference to an old movie by Billy Wilder, and it ends with a kind of a veiled reference to an old Billie Holiday song that you might, those of you who know Strange Fruit, might hear echoes of. Both film noir and the American blues are about archetypes. And the archetype that interested me when I was scribbling this poem was the naive or the gullible American as depicted by Fred McMurray in this movie. And I had no idea where the poem was going until I saw some footage of a march in Charlottesville, Virginia, a night march by some neo-Nazis with flamed torches and chants of hatred. And then I knew what this poem was about. It's called American Femme Fatale. Like Barbara Stanwyck in Double Indemnity, she spots our naivete beneath the fakery of our pork pie hat and blue woolen suit, our salesman's grin and impish demeanor. She smells our desperation when we lean in to inhale her perfume. She cracks wise and turns an aloof shoulder, then winks, or so we think. Was that a wink? She plays us like a trout lured into the shallows, just for kicks at first, but later she fries us in a pan with lemon and butter, dash of salt, dash of pepper, splash of whiskey. Down her long, elegant gullet we go, sweet Jesus, like the lump of a rat, down the cool length of a shiny garden snake who slithers on back to the shade of the gnarled old tree, whose strange fruit droops into the shadows, whose fruit hangs low, real low down, whose misshapen, bittersweet fruit resembles the jackboot, the cudgel, the noose. Thank you for listening.
What's up, beautiful people? What's up, other beautiful people? I'm Bryce. I'm part of the English class as well. I'll be introducing Melissa West. Melissa West's work explores a fine line between comfort and menace in our most common stories and shared experiences. The place where they meet sometimes is fraught with tension and sometimes filled with magic. In her print, she often depicts the characters who populates myths, legends, and fairy tales, but transplants them in a modern and neutral settings. The tension thus created helps the viewer see the fairy tales anew and think of the ways they remain relevant to the modern world. Many of her prints take a tropical slant, honoring the tradition of the broadsheets and political tracks. West lives in Watsonville, California, with her spouse and 3 cats.
Okay, thank you. I'm like everyone else, so pleased to be here and honored to be part of this this proceeding. Let me share my screen. I have several. There we go. Several prints. I'm a printmaker, and printmaking lends itself to series of images, and what's included in this issue is parts of 2 series. The first one I'm showing is one of my rustscapes, where I took rust and absorbed it into the paper and then used it in prints that explored environmental degradation. In this print, there's a pump jack, and behind it are the chemical symbols of all the toxic chemicals that are off-gassed during oil production. And that is a teamed print with this one, which is another rustscape. And this, again, it's a pump jack with the rust behind it. And these are the actual diseases that are caused by the chemicals that are off-gassed in the first print. So a little environmental commentary. The other prints I have in the magazine are my Freedom Writer series. And this set of prints was 3 years in the making. I started them during the 60th anniversary of the Freedom Rides. And there was a lot of articles in the news about this anniversary, and they led to photographs that were the mugshots of the Freedom Riders when they were arrested at the end of their trip in Mississippi. And I was struck by just these beautiful portraits that even in this terrible situation of having been arrested after this sort of purposeful journey, they still had this, the anonymous police photographer managed to capture a real dedication and soulfulness, and I thought they were beautiful, and I wanted to do something with them. So I started this series of prints, and I just chose riders at random, and I started out making them almost saint-like, and you can see the remnants of a halo around this person's name is Credell Petway. You can see the remnants of a halo, and it's like, no, they're not saints. They're average people who have stepped up to do something really important. They've gone beyond their comfort zone. So I thought again how to present this, and I came up with the idea of having the events of the time as a background to their portraits. So in this print, you see the burning bus. The buses were set on fire by people who didn't want the Freedom Riders coming through their town, and the police not protecting them in this instance, but it was a photograph of people preventing them from getting off the bus. And the halo has turned into the swirl of events behind them. And the blue, I use blue to sort of evoke the idea of the television, because this was when news was starting to be live and televised. So I wanted that sort of blue glow to happen. This one is Hank Thomas, who was another one of the Freedom Riders. And again, the events of the day behind him in the swirl of the struggle for social justice. And then John Lewis, of course, was the head of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, and he was one of the main organizers of the Freedom Rides. And whereas the other people have generic events behind them, these are actual events from John Lewis's life, and culminating with him getting the Presidential Medal of Freedom from Barack Obama. So I wanted to have sort of a trajectory in the print. And I like to follow the tradition of political printmaking. A lot of my prints are very political in nature. And I just wanted to comment that at a recent open studio, someone asked me, well, do you ever think you change anyone's mind with these prints? And I thought about it, it's like, my point isn't to change a mind. But what I hope to do with my prints is to maybe raise questions and maybe present a new viewpoint or a new idea and start a conversation. And I appreciate very much Red Wheelbarrow, including my prints, and hopefully starting other conversations as well. All right, thank you again for having me.
I'm Candace, one of Professor Weisner's students, and I'm happy to be introducing Yolanda Guerra, a mixed media artist, was born and raised in San Jose, California, and received her art degree at San Jose State University. She maintains a studio practice in San Jose and Oaxaca, Mexico. Welcome, Yolanda.
Hello, it's kind of strange to be here. Thank you, Ken, for including me. I'm a little nervous and a little emotional hearing wonderful poems and really soaking in all that energy, all the emotion, and all the beautiful artwork that's in the book. And I just want to say, when I create, it's an odd space to be as an artist to present or to talk about my work, because I'm an artist and I usually kind of, I don't use words. And words are part of my art when I begin. So how my process, I stand firmly on the ground. and I listen. And I listen to words or colors. I don't know why I'm so emotional, I'm so sorry. I listen to words or colors and it forms for me. The pieces that are in the book and the cover began at a time in just whatever 3 or 4 years ago when we had a particular president, and the fear of people on the border, people being incarcerated, a group of people, a type of people. And I will say that it's as a human being, as a Latina, it is a wound. It is a wound on us. And I am grateful for being able to feel that and not just kind of let it go. It's still very much a part of me. And so when I do my work, I am listening to what needs to surface or what needs to continue to be talked about. So again, I'm very grateful to have my pieces in the exhibition. It is honoring people who are not seen sometimes, people who are forgotten. And I think for me, it's really important to to do work in that manner. And so when my process, I'm a mix, like I said, like the young person who introduced me, I am a mixed media artist. Most of my prints, when I do my prints or my paintings, but definitely my prints, are carved into wood, and I quilt them on fabric. And in that process, it's a meditative process. The carving into, it's almost like a prayer to really think about what I'm creating. And it becomes a healing process for me, in the sense of holding in that, that concern that I have, and also just as a human being, seeing that around or being in those spaces of hearing these people who are suffering. I tend to do work that draws you in with color to kind of move you into the space, like, oh, this is kind of nice. Look at how neat. And then when you get there, it's like, boom. It's like, you know. And that's what I want. I want you to come and be in that presence of the piece, and to really try to take time to understand what's really going on. The piece of Love and Courage is about, it's about this legacy that you take forward, but you're bringing all the people who have supported you, be it your ancestors, be it the people who have loved you, and you move forward with that strength. And then the Familia and the Sacrifices Made, which is on the back cover of the book, is definitely about the people who who have been in the camps, who probably still are in the camps, but we're not hearing about them. But it's about the families and the sacrifices people make to have a better life, and that we all have that right. We all have that right to have a better life, and no borders should stop that. And so those are the pieces. There are other pieces, and I was surprised. I didn't realize all the other pieces were in here too. I just thought it was the back cover and the front cover. But again, thank you, Ken. Thank you to the students who are, who are in your class, and I really appreciate being here. And thank you.
Tell people that the original work is right there on the wall.
The original work is right there. So I'm in this exhibition at Works Gallery and Savarese, and I'm very happy to be part of the show.
I'm going to take my mask off. Can you hear me? I don't have a microphone. It feels so strange. That's the whole Zoom thing. My name is Cynthia, and I did indeed read 1,500 poems. But it was a joy because I loved working on this magazine. And it is my distinct honor right now to introduce our judge this year, who was Juan Felipe Herrera. I have to put these on to read what I have to say about him. Poet Laureate of the United States from 2015 to 2017. Juan Felipe Herrera was born in Fowler, California on December 27, 1948. The son of migrant farmers, Herrera moved often, living in trailers or tents along the roads of the San Joaquin Valley in Southern California. As a child, he attended school in a variety of small towns from San Francisco to San Diego. Herrera's recent books include Every Day We Get More Illegal, City Lights 2020, Notes on the Assemblage, City Lights 2015, Senegal Taxi, University of Arizona Press 2013, and Half of the World in Light, New and Selected Poems, University of Arizona Press 2008, excuse me. In a profile of Herrera in the New York Times, Stephen Burt wrote, "Many poets since the 1960s have dreamed of a new hybrid art, part oral, part written, part English, part something else. An art grounded in ethnic identity, fueled by collective pride, yet irreducibly individual. Many poets have tried to create such an art. Herrera is one of the first to succeed." Juan Felipe, thank you so much for judging our 6th annual poetry contest and for being here on Zoom. And we are so excited to hear about our winners. Thank you.
I just wanted to say thank you once again to everyone. I really am enjoying your poetry, your artwork, what you have to say about what you're doing and up in the woods and the forests and the burned down trees and with your art of migrantes and how you're working with wood and your poems and your beautiful voices, perhaps most of all, who we really are. That's what we're doing and providing a new road, a very necessary path that's rarely out in the open through the general media, the media world, which is what's happening. And that's okay. It's just that I'm glad we're creating our own media in a sense and sharing it with everyone and everything. So thank you so much. And a very inspirational moment. I get so busy that I forget that life is not being busy. And you reminded me of peace and love and compassion and dedication and perseverance. So muchas gracias. I really appreciate every one of you and your writing and your poetry, working with people in correctional, quote unquote, facilities, quote unquote, and that as well. And students coming up there and getting in front of the stage and presenting poets. That's tough to do also. And it's I'm glad that you got up there as well. So, I don't know what happened, but I've been doing judge stuff a lot. Something's going on. Something's going on. And as you know, it's impossible, because all the poems are great. And we know, because we do this ourselves, how much we put into our writing. and how much we value it, even though we don't say it. We're kind of quiet about how we feel about our writing, and we're kind of quiet about talking about ourselves, because we may talk a lot, but we don't really like to talk about ourselves, right? We just don't do that. It's part of our, I guess, secret poetry code. And it's a good thing to be humble. And it's a good thing to assist others and to applaud others. That's more like something we like to do. It's a good thing. So I've been judging a lot of stuff. I mean, it keeps on coming in. I go, leave me alone. I don't say that, but it's good to see all the poetry, isn't it? It's good to see that there's a lot of poetry everywhere. And I remember when I was in, just a few seconds about this, when I was, I don't know, in the late 60s, I think there were like 2 poets. There were like 3 poets in San Diego, California. I remember driving down from LA. I was going to school in LA and came down to see my friends, and we had poems. I think there's just 3 of us on a porch. And I guess we needed to get out and really meet more people. And those were the easy rider years, motorcycles and helmets and hair down to our kneecaps. At least that's what I look like. And Don, scribbling on poetry on paper and whatever I could. And in LA, I didn't know that many poets. Maybe there were 2 or 3, and that was good. Jack Hirschman was at UCLA. I was at UCLA, but I never got to meet him at UCLA. And I knew him in San Francisco. And as you know, he passed away not long ago. A great poet and a great activist. Our great poet, Jack Hirschman, passed away, as you know. Many of our poets passed away in the last few years, as you know also. And I remember them, and I put them down and dedicate poems to them. And if I get a little book out, then I'll put as many names as I can. I kind of flood the whole book with dedications. There's probably more dedications in the book than poetry. But thank you so much. I'm really inspired. And the poets, it was hard to say these are the top 3, but all your poems were great. And I was very happy to look at Claudia, is it Meléndez, Salinas, Claudia Salinas, her poetry, the Huichol peoples of Central Mexico. It's a very interesting poem and very rare and very well put together. But we're always playing, and it's good to play with our poetry and create new styles within a poem, or add new voices to it, or go somewhere where we usually wouldn't go. That's what's nice about it. And I was also glad to look at Patricia, is it Williams, poetry, Aya Williams, and Regina O'Melveny. Those were great poems, and many others. It was just very difficult to choose 3, and I did. So it's very inspiring also to have women get the prizes also. It's like something we do also, isn't it? We want to be as open and inclusive. I guess we get too inclusive sometimes, but it's good to be too inclusive and admit everyone and every poem and every line and every word. The more we accept each other, the better. And we do with our poetry. It's like giving, isn't it? We get up to give. We write to give. We stand up to give. We express ourselves to give, to embrace, and to bring a good world into view, good heart and kindness and compassion and caring. And all the art that we do, isn't that great? To put water on paper and make those trees come alive. To go to I also taught at Soledad, in Soledad, I think in the education room where all the quote unquote inmates go, And it was quite an experience. I had to learn how to teach all over again because it's a whole different thing. And we have to be really open to our students at all times. Anyway, I'm talking too much about myself. I just wanted to thank you and for putting this program together and this great issue together and the great art on the cover and back cover and what you have to say about your art and what you have to say about your poetry and getting up here and reading your poems. And I'm glad you're doing that because they're beautiful poems. They're poems we don't get to read. They're visions that we don't get to see. There's compassion and kindness that we don't feel on a day-to-day basis. And it's an embrace of the earth that we don't get to feel or see or hear on a day-to-day basis. So you're providing what we really need. You're providing what we all really need. Everything else, 98% of everything else that's presented outside of this reading today, it doesn't reach the depth that you have reached tonight. And we appreciate everything, of course, but you really have presented something very loving and caring and beautiful, and yours and your beautiful voice and your art and your life that you have dedicated yourselves to and your poetry. So I thank you from Fresno, California down here, this little room, and they won't let me out anymore. So muchas gracias todos ustedes. Thank you so much. Thanks for letting me be the judge. And I appreciate reading your poetry. And I want you to continue. I know you're already continuing. And I'll see what I can do to find your poems and art as best as I can, so I can appreciate it up close. Muchas gracias, and thank you so much. Thanks for calling on me. And next time, everybody will get first place, okay? So thank you once again. See you all soon.
So third place, thank you, Juan Felipe, for your beautiful words, and your presence here makes a huge difference to us. And you are a wonderful poet of wit and heart, and the way the two combine is so rare. Thank you for that life and scribbling you do. I know you're scribbling. That's what you said.
That's
so
right.
I think, do you want us to introduce the actual winners, or do you want to do that? Either way is fine.
Yeah, you go ahead, because I'm not sure I got the right middle names and all that.
Okay, well then maybe you could just stay with us, and some of us will introduce the people to come up.
Okay.
Third place winner, Patricia Aya Williams, lives in Southern California. Her poem, Abilene, earned honorable mention in the Steve Cowett Poetry Prize 2020 to 2021.
Mm-hmm.
Her work has appeared in San Diego Poetry Annual, Writers Resist, Origami Poems Project, and The Closed Eye Open. And she will read, is it Ichiban today, which won third prize from Juan Felipe. Welcome, Patricia, and congratulations. And come on up.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. And also just want to thank I have some friends here in the Bay Area and also in San Jose, where I live now, who are Zooming in. So shout out to them. Yay, thank you for being here. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Just a brief introduction to the poem. For those of you who don't speak Japanese fluently, which is probably most of us, and me included, the word ichiban means number one, or the best.
Ichiban.
Ichiban. And this poem is based on my experiences growing up in East San Jose during the 1970s. And I will let the poem speak for itself. Okay. Ichiban. Is there a girl from East San Jose, any other like me? A ching chong, sing song, all American girl growing up in good times and happy days, whose mother worked at the school across the street and was Japanese or Chinese, same thing, who can still see Tommy Gonzalez walking on his hands outside the school cafeteria on Sloppy Joe or pizza or spaghetti day, who was awed by Serena, Lavinia, Owita, Black girls tougher than all the boys put together, but who were always sweet to her mother. Yes, Mrs. Driscoll. Thank you, Mrs. Driscoll. Who climbed trees, climbed fences, especially that one down by the creek, and ripped her new corduroy pants right down the butt crack while running away from One-Eyed Rosie, Big Ruby, and Scary Tiny, who was a tetherball queen because she was tall like her daddy and coordinated, as he said, or big boned, as her mother said, who punched that yellow globe 6 ways to Sunday until it spun its way to the top like the midday sun, who called rules, no backswings, no bubbles, no poles, no ropes, no lines, no stops. Okay, call stops if you want, you still won't win. Whose mother walked to Lucky Supermarket because dad had the car for work, and anyway, mom didn't want to learn how to drive. Who lived a banana bike seat away from the barrio, popping wheelies on a sky blue Schwinn. Who in Mrs. Harris's class always tried to sit next to blue-eyed Billy Mueller and his bazooka bubblegum, whose nickname was Moneybags because she knocked on classroom doors, collecting jingly drawstring bags full of lunch money, carrying them to Mrs. Salvatore in the office, who looked up from her desk and smiled, who was sweet on Sylvester Mendoza, standing next to him and his red Elton John t-shirt for the class picture, whose parents believed in the good book and the good belt, and who cramped like a kicked dog when her mother said, just wait till your dad gets home. Is there a girl from East San Jose? Hey, no other like me. A ching chong bang-a-gong #1 Ichiban girl who remembers Walter Roa wiggling all his fingers at her, saying, we're gonna have this many babies. Thank you, everybody.
Award-winning poet and novelist, Regina O'Melveny. First, I should say thank you for reading that poem so beautifully, Patricia. So award-winning poet and novelist, Regina O'Melveny, is with us in Zoom tonight. This year's poetry contest second prize winner is a writer and artist whose poetry and prose have been anthologized widely. Her long poem, Fireflies, won the Conflux Press Poetry Award. Blue Wolves, a collection of poems with reproductions of her assemblages, won the Bright Hill Press Poetry Award. Her novel, The Book of Madness and Cures, was published by Little Brown and Company. It was listed under Time Passages, the year's best historical fiction at npr.org. So Regina has taught writing at Marymount College, the Palos Verdes Art Center, and South Coast Botanic Gardens, and lives with her husband in Rancho Palos Verdes. So welcome, Regina. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. And I just would like to say, can you hear me all right? Yeah. Okay, good. I just would like to thank all the other poets. And artists. I feel like I'm at a feast of word and image and enormous heart. So I feel so grateful to be a part of this. And thanks to Ken and to Rob and Joe and of course all the devoted students who read all the poems, and especially Juan Felipe Herrera, whose generous words and encouraging words were so wonderful. Thank you very much. So I'll just say about this poem that I find myself often really inspired by my garden. I think that my backyard is one of my best teachers in writing poetry, as well as the words of other poets that I find myself in conversation with. So I'll read this poem, Mountain. And this is an epigraph at the beginning. And no hurt or harm be done anywhere along the holy mountain. That's from John O'Donohue, Benedictus. Here in my garden, small mountain of fresh earth kicked up in holy dig by gophers who sink my artichokes. Whole plants shaken, toppled, vanished, unintended offerings. Here the anthill, fine crater mount, entry to the underworld, immaculate community, each one working for all for one queen at center, who oviposits life after life. Here the far mountain in dream after a friend's estrangement, a twisted road, difficult journey. I want to bless, release, pray, but the road writhes, steepens, stops. Here the mountain where I live, scrabbled by spring wind that tosses branches, moans all the way from pungent desert and bears in its wake not calm, but a blue edge or uneasy bellwether. Still I lose words, trust, and must come back to the rugged range that offers no pass until I see the holy mountain reach is the whole of things that must be circled, walked, ascended, descended over and over, received in silence, venerated, smelt, tasted, seen every day. I hold it, mountain in hand, and pray, let no harm come to gopher, ant, or friend. Thank you.
So our first prize winner, and thank you very much, Regina, for zooming in and reading so beautifully. What Juan Felipe said about Regina's poem was a joyous piece, philosophical, personal voice, offering us depth and relationship with the earth. It moves, leaps in various rhythms, well-structured. Each stanza offers insights and new consciousness. And what he wrote about Patricia's poem was, I love the zest of this poem. It's swag, materials, terms, age grade, energy, inner and outer strength. Movement, scenes and characters, precision and authenticity. I want to be in there, he said. So about Claudia Meléndez Salinas' first prize poem, he wrote, and she's about to read for us, I'm fascinated by the weave of body, culture, and language, a complex project of moving through deep Huichol beliefs and figures with the secular and urban world. Magnificent and rare poem. This year's first prize winner is Claudia Meléndez Salinas of Salinas, California. Claudia is an award-winning multimedia journalist, teacher, novelist, and co-founder of the not-for-profit bilingual news organization, Voices of Monterey Bay, which, by the way, I just donated to. You can too. It's really a great website to visit. Her poems have appeared in Xenakli Journal and Voices of Monterey Bay, as well as Latin Literatures and El Andar. And so we are just thrilled to give our first place award. And I know that Juan Felipe is thrilled to give it to this year to Claudia Meléndez Salinas. Welcome.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, everyone who contributes to this. I am so thrilled. I'm just looking at my loved ones here in the first row, my mom, my tia, my best friend, my husband. And I know there's probably some people watching and I just want to start crying. I'm a crybaby, so if I start crying, you know why. I wrote this poem called Transitioning. A good friend of mine was dealing with her grandma about to die. And she was telling me how hard it was to try to keep it together while also teaching. And she felt guilty that she was not paying attention to her students and not paying attention to faculty meetings. And I said to her, you know, you need to be there for your grandma because she's gonna go through this only once. So you need to help her. And she said, why don't you write that to me because I'm going to forget. And I was gonna write her a long letter and then this poem came out. So her grandma was Huichol, Huixarica. And so I decided to do some learning about the culture so I could write about that. Transitioning. Your body knows it's not just cells it nourishes, it's dreams, its presence. It's the strength to hold your abuelita's hand as she travels to the ever after. Your body asks for the right foods at the right time. If you sit down and listen with your eyes closed, your mind open, heart with no judgment. Your body knows hers, ancestral cord, corazón huichol, huixarica beat, unlimited falls of wisdom is ready for the last breath. Her transitioning into memory, her return to El Gran Nayar, her reunion with Tatutsi Maxawaxi, ready to take her place among the stars. So hold on tight, Okari Warutsima Mahema, to that hand, the seed, the ancestral connection to your land, to your Gran Nayar, to Tatutsi Maxawaxi. Tomorrow there'll be time for grading, for syllabi, for faculty meetings, and other earthly crap. Today you hold on tight to Takutsima, rock, wind, and sail. Today you tighten the knot to the eternal cord, and then like a papaloto, just let her go. Isn't it amazing, all the wisdom your body holds? Thank you. Thank you. And I want to read it in Spanish. Quiero leerla en español because my mom is here and she speaks English, but I want her to understand better. En español. Transición. Tu cuerpo sabe que no son solo células lo que nutre, son sueños, presencia. La fuerza de sostener la mano de tu abuela durante su viaje al más allá. Tu cuerpo pide la comida precisa en el momento justo. Si te sientas y escuchas con los ojos cerrados, la mente abierta, sin juicio en el corazón. Tu cuerpo sabe que el suyo, corazón ancestral, cordón huichol, latido huijárica, arrugas de infinita sabiduría, está listo para el último aliento. Su transición hacia la memoria, su regreso al Gran Nayar, su reunión con Tatutsi Maxawaxi, listo para regresar a su lugar entre las estrellas. Así que agárrate fuerte, Ukari, Warutsima, Mahima, a esa mano, a la semilla, la conexión ancestral a tu tierra, a tu gran Nayar, a tu Tatutsi Maxawaxi. Mañana habrá tiempo para calificar, para hacer copias, para asistir a juntas y otra burocracia terrenal. Hoy agárrate fuerte a tu Takutsima, tu piedra, viento y vela. Hoy aprieta el nudo a tu corazón ancestral y luego, como papalote, lo dejarás ir. ¿No es increíble la sabiduría que está dejando en ti? Thank you. Gracias.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Stein. I'm one of the readers for the poetry contest, which has been a great joy. And I am going to be introducing Gary Young, who is the author of many award-winning volumes of poetry. His most recent books are That's What I Thought, which is the winner of the Lexi Rudnitsky Editor's Choice Award from Percy Books, and Precious Mirror, which is translations from the Japanese. He teaches creative writing and directs the Cowl Press at UC Santa Cruz. Founder over 50 years ago of Greenhouse Review Press, Gary created our winning broadside for Claudia Meléndez Salinas this fall, and we hope he will share that process with us and also read his 2 prose poems published here. Welcome, Gary.
Well, thank you. And first of all, I want to give my condolences to Juan Felipe. I do not envy him the task of trying to pull winners out of these wonderful poems. But I do want to congratulate Claudia for her remarkable poem here and let you know a little bit of how I put this broadside together. Ordinarily, I look for an image. Images are really the little engines that run our poems. You know, that's what drives our poems around. And so I try to pick one image and focus on that and create a woodcut or some other kind of image for the broadside. But this poem was different, and it seemed to me that the entire poem was like the body in transition. And I'm trying to figure out how can I make an entire poem go through the transition that Claudia describes in someone passing from this life into the next life. Just thinking about it in that way, it came to me that I could just take the poem and reverse it, and print one as a mirror image of the other, and I put a little graphite into the ink for the mirror image, and a little red, because it seems to me that we lose our blood as we go through, but we don't entirely lose it all. So that was my thinking, and I hope that Claudia likes it. It was a real treat to print this broadside. So, and now I have to find my poems, because I put the magazine under my laptop so that I could so you wouldn't have to look at the ceiling.
Yes.
If somebody wants to shout out what
Ken,
page,
I
there they
absolutely
are.
love
Found it.
you so much.
Okay, so the 2 poems of mine in this issue of Red Wheelbarrow are from a book that I just completed called American Analects, and it obviously takes its cue from the Analects of Confucius. Many of the poems in this book are about my dear friend and mentor, Gene Holton, who died 5 years ago. He was my Confucius. And so these are 2 little poems about Gene that I'm really happy to share. Gene kept painting after Elizabeth died, but said, "I've lost my audience. At least I haven't lost interest in a conversation with the work," he said, "but there's no reason for doing it. And who's doing it is unknown to me." Dean, I should probably mention, was an artist, a painter, but he taught me more about poetry than any of my poetry teachers. And this last little poem. Jean was talking to a man on the street and later said, I recognized his face as he spoke, but I'd forgotten his name. Thankfully, he started telling me stories about himself, and they reminded me who he was. Thank you. And again, Claudia, congratulations on your beautiful poem. And
Hey, Gary, can you hang on a minute?
Sure.
And this, Claudia wants to say a few words about this. So I didn't make a screen share for it, so this is the best we can do.
I just wanted to thank you, Gary. It's absolutely beautiful. When Ken sent me the photo, I started crying. So, but I cry easily. So, but anyway, it was absolutely gorgeous. I really, really love it. Thank you so much for this beautiful, for sharing, having art, sharing with my art is very priceless. So thank you so much.
Well, I'm honored, and I'm glad that you like it.
Thank you.
You know, also we have so rarely have a winner who lives in our neighborhood. This is the 6th year we've done the prize, and the first year that, you know, so you two will meet and in sometime in the future and be able to get to know each other. So as opposed to when, you know, the person is in New York or Seattle or whatever.
Well, I look forward to it.
Me too. Thank you.
So. So those broadsides are available in the back there. I don't know if Claudia has set a price for them yet. So, you know, and I know Gary may have them on his Greenhouse Review website sometime soon as well. But they are a treasure. And the mirror writing is beautiful with the poem. So, you know, I realize that we've, this hybrid reading, it's been, it's a long reading. And, you know, we do have one more prize winner. And then I think it might be wise if you can give us all feedback here, but since this has taken longer than a normal event with the hybrid and organizing for it, I think it's a wonderful event, and I can't wait to hear the 9 readers who are left, whom I love dearly. But I do think we might want to take just a stretch break. What do you guys think? So I think after we hear from Yesol, who's the last of a finalist, at some point, if it's agreeable to you, we could just stretch for a few minutes and then start in again. I'm hesitant to do that because I want everyone to stay, but I also feel, you know, another way we could do this is to have, just as the Zoom world out there, those guys are all muting and going to get a sandwich and coming back. But you guys can also, during you can get revenge on them, actually. So while Gary's reading, you can go get a cookie back there and then come sit down. And there are restrooms also, of course, right here. So I would just like to say that Yesol Kim, who's our finalist, who's here in Zoom and just got off work back in New York somewhere. She's a student of literature and an MFA candidate in poetry at NYU. She lives in New York and was a finalist for this year's prize. And Juan Felipe, who's I think here again, I hope he'll say what he feels like saying. I think he's unmuted. But he said about this poem in his judge's statement: legend and reality, culture and time, family and generational change, 2 very rich and unique stanzas and stories, memory and the present. Mother, grandmother, and speaker, mouth, womb, a whale's jawbone in the desert, the blackest brine of the deep, intense symbols and structures. So Juan Felipe read so closely and picked many different kinds of poems, and we are deeply grateful. And Yesol, we're deeply grateful to have you read to us your finalist poem. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you everyone for bringing this event to life. Thank you, Ken. Thank you especially to Juan for your very attentive and kind reading. I'm grateful for your words. All right. 미역국. Insomniac. She brings a pot to boil. Another year older. Grandmother's unjotted recipe. Kelp broth teeming with anchovies. Postpartum soup. Legend has it, we learned this craft watching whales eat seaweed after birth, a story she wishes mother had told. She cooks in a vaporous wake. Iodine of long nights sublimed. Seaweed unspools like film. Lies splice the memories she tells herself. What grows on truth's underside, algae of latent image. If her soul could be imaged, she imagines this. A whale's jawbone in the desert where oceans go to sleep. Another year rings forth from her like water, dreamless lucidity. She stews a microcosmic sea, soy sauce, garlic shoal pre-minced, the kind Haimoni never bought. Miyak reels the black, hair of the drowned reanimate. Birthday poop. Make this to honor what Amma ate, recovering from the wound of you. Soul food, she thinks. If soul is a mouth that hungers for womb, time immemorial. She eats to taste the salt. Not enough fat. An oil spill of sesame, gold boys in the blackest brine of deep. Thank you.
So we do have a couple writers, one of whom is on the East Coast still, and I hate to have him go through a break. Maybe maybe we could have Phil read, and then we'll have a little stretch. Phil, are you still there?
I'm still here, Ken.
It's 11:30, isn't it?
11:44.
Phil Memmer. Well, actually, Smith, would you like to introduce Phil? You have to get up early?
Yeah.
Oh my God. You're gonna never forgive us for this.
You're gonna have some fun tonight. One second. Okay. Phil Memmer. He's the author of 5 books, poems, most recently The Pantheon, Lost Horse Press, 2019. His 6th poem is from the Lost Horse Press in fall 2022. He lives in upstate New York, as we evidently found out with his 1144. He founded and directs YMCA's Downtown Writing Center, which is pretty cool. He serves as a publisher in Tiger Bank Press, teaches creative writing at Hamilton College. Welcome, Phil. Thank you for staying up late for joining us, but stage is all yours now.
My pleasure, and thank you all. What a great night of poetry, and thanks, Ken, for having a little mercy on me here at the end too. Greatly appreciated. Though I'm going to hang out and listen as long as I can. Yeah, this little book, Cairns, is hot off the press, and I'm going to read just a few quick sections. It's I think the only things you need to know are that it's a retelling of the Sisyphus story. and that it's made up of 72 little teeny poems, 8 of which are in the new issue of Red Wheelbarrow. So they go by very, very quick. They're only 44 or 45 syllables each, so really, really short. In recognition of my life, the gods provided me in death this mountain, this stone, and forever. We all get that. But what good would forever be without a mountain, a stone? Sisyphus, the stone whispers, are you awake? All day its weight tears my limbs. All night it whimpers in my ear, so that if I dream of the sorrows of stones. No, I say, I'm sleeping. When I despair, the stone reminds me how once this path was flat, a blackened plain, how someone spent their own sad forever to build rock on rock this peak. That was me, I remind the stone. Sisyphus, the stone asks, why do you love me? Just how, I scoff, could I ever love a stone? But its weight feels strange. I didn't ask if you knew how, explains the stone. I asked you why you do. The holidays come. The charred trees are choked with lights, and for a little while, hell's deep bells are tuned a few notes higher. Soon I'll start my climb like I always do, but drunk, the stone festooned with bows. How long, asks the stone, can you keep this up? I pause amid smoking thistles. The climb, you mean? No, says the stone. I mean your silly claim that if you could do something else, you wouldn't do this. One day we agreed, just for a change, that I would climb the mountain on my own, and the stone would do some stone stuff on the ground. Then, without a thought, I bent down just like always to lift the stone. Atop the mountain, the gift shop and scenic car park are packed as always. Kids bicker, parents curse flat tires. The stone falls. We all stare. I still can't tell whether they're in my hell or I'm in theirs. Sisyphus, the stone asks, are you awake? We need to talk, it continues, about tomorrow. There's no tomorrow, I say, just more todays. In that case, the stone says, let's talk about today. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, now we will have a stretch break. And I will just say that after that, we have incredible poems. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 poems that are absolutely marvelous. And so we will, it's kind of like those soccer games that go into extra time. So you've watched the whole soccer game, but now you have to watch 30 minutes more and the penalty kicks. That's what's going on here. That means it's a really good game. So thank you, Phil, for that great reading and for your patience. Everybody in Zoom, everybody here, will reconvene in about 2 minutes. Oh, just a couple minutes. Must have to do with the
fact that we're late.
Oh, the venue itself might have to close it. So just a few minute break, just 3-minute break. Oh, wow. Well, they're playing.
Not that surprise.
This one. All right.
Thank you.
Did a very nice job. You were like animated. There you go. Oh, you should go. Yeah.
You're so good. Yeah.
One really big fee.
I think we have to finish this thing off, Rob. Huh? I think we got to do this thing.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. You're up.
So right now. Okay, I think we're back. Hi. So we are back to hear some wonderful poetry, and we will start with the amazing Susan Alexander, whose most recent collection of poems is The Dance Floor Tilts, Thistledown Press, and she lives in, and she'll help me pronounce this, Nexwelexum, Bowen Island, Canada, which is the traditional unceded territory of the Squamish Nation. Welcome, Susan, and thank you for your patience and for zooming in with us from Canada.
Oh, thank you. It's wonderful to be here. Nuch Lalochem is the actual pronunciation. That's best I can do. And the funny thing is, this poem actually is set in this neighborhood, which is right next to the Capilano Reserve of the Squamish Nation. It's called, the title of the poem is Norgate Shell. And can you all hear me well enough? Good. Norgate Shell, November 1957. He always said to pay attention to breaks in the rain. Watch for the moment the torrent stalled. He knew wet weather for a fact, running out to gas pumps or driving some rich guy's Cadillac around the neighborhood, past the Tomahawk, the modest hula houses. Tires cruised through underwater intersections while he tuned engine music between the wiper blades' metronome, paid in cash or IOUs, sometimes with salmon. This poem is a photo never taken. The rain stops. Dad lights up an export A, even though he's quitting. He leans into the doorway at his station. Service cap cocked back, hands etched. His false teeth gleam. One ray of leaked sun warms him, and he stretches like a cat with a fish. Thank you, Ken, and the whole gang at the Red Wheelbarrow, and for this opportunity.
Okay. Moving on. Doren Robbins is a poet, mixed media artist, and educator from Santa Cruz, California. Robbins' art and written works have appeared in the American Poetry Review, another Chicago magazine, Exquisite Corpse, and many others. Excuse me, I'm sorry, it's on another page. His books were awarded the Blue Links Poetry Prize, 2001, and the 2008 Penn Oakland Josephine Miles Poetry Award. In 2021, Spuyten Duyvil Press published Sympathetic Manifesto, Selected Poems, 1975 to 2015, reviewed in this year's Red Wheelbarrow by John Olson. He was Professor Emeritus at Foothill College until 2022. Welcome, Doren Robbins.
Okay, thank you. I always hate asking this question, but can people hear me? It is Zoom. I don't know. Okay, great. I'm going to read from my selected poems since they're reviewed in Red Wheelbarrow. And it's this book here. It's called Sympathetic Manifesto. And in particular, because Ken and everybody involved with Red Wheelbarrow especially the last several years have really displayed such a truly humane sense of social consciousness, along with a really passionate sense of expression in the selections that have been made, both visually and in poetry. I wanted to begin with a poem from the selected, not from one of the poems that are published in Red Wheelbarrow, but it's an elegy and ode that I wrote to Pablo Neruda many years ago, who as a poet was a tremendous inspiration to me because of the very thing I just said about Ken and Red Wheelbarrow, his sense of justice and his remarkable use of imagery, coming through the imagination of his poems. And it's simply called For Pablo Neruda. And the poem actually begins with the way the inspiration for it began. I was astonished looking into the paper, finding out about the fall of Chile, and then very closely right after that, the death of Neruda, which some now believe was a poisoning by the very doctors that were sent to take care of him in the last days of his life because of the fascist takeover For Pablo Neruda. Lean men, broad-shouldered men. I'm looking at them in the newspaper with their perfectly styled hair and their sagging, inquisitive eyes, and the gold epaulets on their uniforms that shine even when there is no light. They took you down, Neruda. It didn't matter to them that you emerged from the birthplace of shadows. It didn't matter to them that you imitated the moon with words for a woman, or that you screamed at the blood on the factories for the poor. They simply wanted you dead. You were old, you were weak, you saw it coming. The same state police siren you heard when they wanted you dead before. I read how they withheld your medicine when you were already dying, how they confiscated your piece of land, how they decorated the bedrooms of military men with your exotic collection of shells, and how they burned all your books that were related to the vegetation you were about to become. I reread your Nobel speech tonight, Neruda. You said you always put your trust in man. You said you believed in the prophecy of Rimbaud, how in the dawn, armed with a burning patience, we shall enter the splendid cities. And now the corporate men and the police informers and the military have covered the splendid city again with their piss and spit and bullets. It doesn't matter to them. All the fires are out of you now, Neruda. There's no phoenix, only in your poems. There is no splendid city, only in words we are too rotten to believe. 4 a.m., the lamp in the patio burns all night like a wing on a dead body that won't stop flying. This second piece is a prose poem, and it originally appeared in the San Jose magazine, Caesura. So I wanted to give my respect to them and honor them too. It appears in the Selected, then it's reprinted in Red Wheelbarrow. It's called River Storm. He saw the pet cicada, he saw the orphan. That's what they called each other. She buried the doll with poor eyes. She buried her in a coat. Which coat, he asked. A good coat? An outgrown coat? A coat doesn't just grow out of one of your flower boxes. Enough that I buried the doll, she said. Saw her looking down the rope knot entangled bridge, chopped up floor, escalator path, narrow runway ramp, no way holding more than one, at least not more than one of them. Saw the face of the woman that came in and out of his dreams over 25 years, recognized her, couldn't get over who it was, lost her smell, lost the connection. Not a problem, he said to himself. He didn't know how much saying that would cost him, and he said it a lot. Not a problem. The rail was a kite string. The river water carried whole trees, sections of composition tiled roofs, saw the fuselage of an airplane, saw horses treading wildly for the water to hold them up, to run them toward a meadow, saw a moaning bull carried off in the current, saw her look away from the water rushing down the surge and close her eyes, pressing his face deeper where she had already kneeled to hold him down between her knees, the heaviest current startling him, the heaviest current he ever whispered his mouth up to, uprooted oak roots pressed under the bridge, oak trunks arched from the river flood, resubmerged, tilting back up the root legs, horses panting alongside of them, saw the stringy part of the roots, saw his legs and hers dance wrapped in them, saw the cicada, saw the orphan. Thank you. And thanks to all the readers. I'm sorry more people didn't stay. The last couple of poems I heard are really terrific and everybody's missed them. So anyways, congratulations to everybody. I'll stay till the end.
Hi, I'm John, and I'm another one of Professor Weisner's students. I'm introducing Lisa Allen Ortiz. Lisa Allen Ortiz's new book is STEM, winner of the 2021 Idaho Prize, judged by Ilya Kaminsky, a favorite poet of anyone who lives in the Santa Cruz County. We are so grateful to introduce Lisa to share a new poem with us tonight. Welcome, Lisa.
Thanks, you guys, for being here. Thanks to Ken and to all the English students in this class for making this pretty magic place. And congratulations to Claudia, and thanks to Yolanda for the cover. I just love the whole vibe that Ken and his class made. I love this tradition. Empire Waste. The poem knows she's naked. She wakes up that way and doesn't seem to care. The poem understands what nakedness is and how her nakedness is her own. The poem likes to think of her conception, that nightline coupling of two love-mad living things, how she was birthed, miniature but fully formed, naked and alive, the way she intends to stay. Such nakedness is by definition nothing, though such nakedness makes an impression. When the poem is put down, she remains. I licked my finger and pressed it against the messy cheek of paper. I write this way. Something made of language blurs around the sclera of my eye. Sometimes I regret what I write. Naked, the poem steps through the gate. She's the type who sees more than she's seen, so she'll be all right. There's safety in being naked the way she's naked, artless and without guile. She could be a list. She could be the pulled off bottom of a receipt standing on the curb. She looks like air. Her nakedness is so complete. She's really nothing. She's gone before she's here. The poem's absence allows her to be more or less understood. She's missing only when she's missed. Invisible, she's free to look around. She has a naked eye with which she glances up at rooftops, wires, trees, a hawk. The poem knows the names of things. I taught that poem names. She knows all the planets. I taught her certain birds and plants. As she walks, she lists the things she sees. Those names define the way she's seen. Those names become that poem's skin. The poem is nothing but a state of being verb. She was and is. Such stillness lets her nakedness be seen, but walking, she's invisible again. She speaks with concealed lips. She discloses soundlessly mustard grass, coffee berry, Venus, Mars. The poem thinks the sky wears a gown of creptasheen and clouds are strewn around like underthings. When I go out, I wear my saddest sweater. Men and women trudge along in puffer coats. I pull my hat down low. I double knot the laces of my boots and look around for the nothing that poem was.
looks like I can't share the screen without, by use that audio unless I go up there. So I have to play this video. I have to go up here.
Well, when you share, you have to check the box that says share audio as well as video.
How about if I try this? Is this gonna work?
Zoom has a button to share the audio.
Okay, that is not working. So share. So will you help me with the share audio button? I'm so sorry.
Yeah, so it's under the share there.
Okay.
So these buttons down here share sound.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much. I'm getting educated. Sorry, we have a video introduction to the next reader, and I didn't know how to do it. You know, it asks me to do some kind of software, Joe, so I'm going to go ahead and just read the introduction. I'm sorry, we can't hear our introducer. I'll have to do it for her. But this is the kind of thing I knew would happen tonight. So there's a lot of learning going on here. So the person who wanted to introduce Lindsay was the contributing editor who chose her work, is Grace Lee. And she did a beautiful video. But apparently it's not, I cannot play the sound for you. So I will read the introduction, and just know that Grace was a wonderful contributing editor this year and chose this work. Lindsay Stewart is from Glen Ellen, California. Her work has been featured in the Los Angeles Review, Tar River Poetry, the I-70 Review, Spillway, and The Shore. And one of her poems was featured on an episode of the Poetry Foundation's BS podcast. Her chapbook, Household, is forthcoming from Egg Tooth Editions. So we'd like to welcome Lindsay Stewart.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me okay? Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I'm so happy that Grace introduced me, even if I didn't get to hear what she had to say. I can ask her later. But she's one of my favorite poets. So just seeing her face was nice. I'm gonna read my poem that's in Red Wheelbarrow. And I care a lot about form. So for any of you who also like form, this poem is one line short of a sonnet, and it's called Withdrawal, or Treading Water at Point Nemo. And there's a footnote to the title. Point Nemo is the location in the ocean farthest from land. Withdrawal, or Treading Water at Point Nemo. Landless, without edges, the only way to go is down. Drowning in cyan, azure, cobalt, midnight. Doubt where air should be. No place to rest my weary mind. Salt dry, sea soaked, taking weather personally. I survive on small sips of self-inventory. The body, both the problem and the solution. Morning on land wanders, aimless. Out here, it cuts like a seabird's urgent beak. The last line of this poem is the first land I've seen in weeks. Thank you.
Do I start? All right. Santa Cruz Poet Laureate David Allen Sullivan's books include Strong Armed Angels, Every Seed of the Pomegranate, a book of co-translation with the Bas Kadim from the Arabic of Iraqi Adnan Al-Sayeh, Bombs Have Not Breakfasted Yet, and Black Ice. Most recently, he won awards for a new chapbook, Take Wing, and published Black Butterflies Over Baghdad with WordWorks Books. He teaches at Cabrillo, where he edits the Porter Gulch Review with his students. Welcome, David.
Thank you all. This late, just being upright is a miracle. Thanks, Ken. Thanks to all the students. Thanks for everybody. Thanks for the richness of this community of writers and artists. I'm just going to read 2 ekphrastic poems. The first is a painting by someone I've got to know, an Iraqi, Amal Hassan. And he lives in Monterey and teaches at the Defense Language Institute. Interesting to meet some of the Iraqis trying to teach the Americans for 1718 a little bit of Arabic and Iraqi culture before they enter that, and how little can be taught in the, I think it's 3 weeks they give them. Anyway, he's a painter and a new father. Reason he's not here tonight. And this is a poem based on that painting called Resilience. Between 2 worlds flies a white stripe of a bird. One wing drags the tigress, pulls up interpuzzled fish, each a womb or tomb, self-contained in a semi-permeable cell, while the other cuts open the sky to reveal villages, whole, undamaged, unpeopled. White cheek turn flies towards a future just beyond the frame, pulls past the past, and the artist dips a fingertip in a pool of oily black paint to daub in its cap. Step back. And the second one, it's hard to do. If you know the Brancusi sculpture Flight, the students nicely included the actual sculpture. There's various versions Brancusi did of this one. And I tried to mimic this shape. It's called Bird in Space. A fluid figure of Flight's ordination, formed in narrowing bronze, rises and twists into a wind tunnel tested sliver of a propeller. Torqued blade turned and shaped on a smith's anvil thinned, furnace burnishing lightning rod, bird's wind blasted bone. With underwing, still shape notes singing of how we yearn to be this true, to be smoothly perfected. So light slices through us and cracks air like a whip's dance, like this strand of hair I pull from your mouth after our last kiss undoes us, and we find ourselves on foreign soil, sucking new air into new lungs, and again register the miracle of our bodies and come to believe they are capable of flight.
Hi, I'm Omer, and I am also a student of Professor Weisner's class, and I'm happy to be introducing Julie Murphy. Julie Murphy's poems appear or are forthcoming in the Chicago Quarterly Review, Atlanta Review, CALYX, Catamaran, and others. A licensed psychotherapist, Julie developed embodied writing and teaches poetry at Salinas Valley State Prison. As a member of the Hive Poetry Collective, she hosts poetry programs on KSQD radio in Santa Cruz. Welcome, Julie.
Thank you so much. And thanks to everyone who's here virtually and physically. And thanks, Ken, for always bringing such a great array of poets and artists together. It's been a pleasure to be here. I'm going to read 2 short poems. First is entitled 5 Years After. It's been cold again. A crust of frost swept across the deck, and the skin splitting at the sides of my fingernails like my mother's and my grandmother's did. Small red slashes like splinters no amount of lotion can prevent. I live in solitary, as does my mother, almost 97, as did her mother before, our husbands having taken leave well ahead of us. The name we're given, widow, like the black spider, like poison, like panic, like the throttle wide open, over the edge we go. The life we knew, a dream of the past. And still the earth spins. Gravity holds the skyscrapers upright. The dog patrols the fenceless yard's edges. The vessel of the day begins empty, then fills with light. Memories huddle together. Chores push the hands around the clock. I drop sterile saline into each eye, blink, ask, is it another dream? Castaneda said, look at your hands. I don't need to look. Lean in, like the wind, what you feel and cannot touch. What is a dream anyway? A time between, something before, something after. Thank you. I live out in the countryside between in the Santa Cruz Mountains, and every season there's something that really grabs my attention and surprises me. That's always brand new. And I wrote this poem this summer after one of those experiences. Midsummer above Boomer Creek. It's late for mating season, but still they dive and rise as in early spring. Kia, kia, sears the hillsides before the red-shouldered hawks arrive, drowns out even the crows. I'm obsessed with the spectacle and abandon any task for their screams. Watching through binoculars, nearly blinded as they cross the sun. 5, 6, 7 times a day, they return from the far side of the ridge. I want what they have, even though I can give it no name. Don't say freedom. Don't say longing. Don't tell me it's some kind of sign. Can't the shiver, trembly as a newborn, that comes with my breath be enough? Thank you. Hello, I'm back. Okay, we have 2 more fabulous poets tonight, and the penultimate poet is Dion O'Reilly, whose debut collection Ghost Dogs was shortlisted for the Catamaran Prize and the Eric Hoffer Award. Her second book, Sadness of the Apex Predator, which is an amazing title, will be published by University of Wisconsin's Cornerstone Press in 2024. Her work appears in The Sun, Rattle, Cincinnati Review, and elsewhere. She facilitates private workshops and hosts a podcast, the Hive Poetry Collective. Welcome, Dion.
Well, I am as grateful as everybody else, and I love Ken like everybody, but I'm going to jump right in. Take my mask off so my glasses don't fog up. Peacock. All Leafs punk friends hated me with my mullet and sellout job. No skin tight glamour, no heroin pallor. I followed his band around Seattle like an orphan follows a stand-in dad. Prayed a wave of energy might pass through him, a God particle oscillate his bones enough to feel me. And then, oh victory, he took a walk with me. The night, full of wind, a storm lifting water from Lake Washington like it might become sky and drown us. He wrapped me in his arms, told me I was his girlfriend, drove me home on his motorcycle to his bed, then fell asleep without touching me. And so it went for many years. There's more to the story, but I like best how much I craved him. Second best, how much I hated him. When he took a second woman, I like to remember my fevered jealousy when he stole my peacock feathers, gifted them to her like a bouquet, how he let me smell her perfume on his sweater, watched me scream my dirtiest epithets as he fingered his guitar. It was 40 years ago. My anger tore like a fire break against a greater flame. I like to think I'll never burn like that again, but I could. It's never too late to believe a beautiful story, start a war to keep it true. Okay, this next one, I wrote after the Dobbs decision. It has this inflammatory title called Right to Life. Right to Life. It has an epigraph. I wish I'd been born a bird instead, he said. I wish we'd all been born birds instead. Kurt Vonnegut. My mother hated her smell, her body hair, depilatory, antiperspirant, FDS ozoned between her legs, a soap-soaked flannel scraped through dirty bits. The house was full of dog must and cat scat, but she dressed in pressed collars, her bunioned toes stuffed into stilettos, her tits lifted in bras named for self-propelled underwater missiles. Remember those? And my father, how she loved to beat a weak man, but be entered by him as he cried for forgiveness. And so I was carried, made manifest and raised, because it must be done, like painting a kitchen yellow or beheading dandelions. She might have been a sea captain, a magnate, a second Stalin. I wasn't her choice. It's not that I wish I was never born, but rather that I'd passed into the universe some different way. Wind, dust, a thrush's song.
All right, our last reader tonight is our friend Rob Pesich, whose work has appeared in myriad magazines and anthologies. He's the author of Model Organism from Five Oaks Press and Burned Kilim from Dragonfly Press. He currently works as president of Poetry Center San Jose at Swan Scythe Press and as a research associate at Palo Alto Veterans Institute for research in Stanford University. And he's been doing a writer's retreat at Jerasai in Koa Honda. So he comes to us fresh with new poems. Welcome, Rob.
I got no new poem. Thank you all for coming tonight. Thanks, Ken. Thank you, Stephanie, for the introduction. And thanks also to Cynthia, Daryl, Caesar, Elizabeth. I mean, just a great team. And Ken, and thanks, Joe, for this. May you all stay happy, healthy this holiday season. Port of entry. How many children did you process today? Their fingers a little thicker than cigarettes? What promises did you make on our behalf to separate them from their family? What did you say to the grandmother who triggered alarms, US-made shrapnel lodged in her neck for decades? How many decades will the steel cages live and grow in our children? While they wait, who holds them? And who sedates them with Divalprox, clonazepam, lorazepam, ziprasidone, olanzapine, benstropine, duloxetine, guanfacine, without consent? Didn't you say don't worry to the senators on their fact-finding mission? Children are quick learners. In the bright 24/7 light, they start with yes, no, stop, and no climbing, no yelling, no singing, no hugging. What bedtime stories are you reading to your children? And with your last draw on your SIG, what do you study? The wind? Your ash? Thank you all. Bless.
So good night, everyone. Think, Gone with the Wind, like the long, great movies. East of Eden, So that's what you've experienced tonight, is that kind of pleasure. So we'll see you next year, and thank you for coming. Buy the magazine in the back, and everyone in Zoom, thank you so much, everybody. Beautiful poetry, beautiful experience. Good night.
Amazing. You stuck it out. I did. I had to.
Yeah. I could figure out how. Because with hybrid, you just have more of everything. More people.
Right?
And it is like,
Oh, it's,
wow.
it's so valuable.
Thank you for saying good things. Yes, the broadsides are also for sale for Claudia. She's here. Yeah, but she's there. Oh, yeah, she's selling. She'll tell you, she owns you notice that I was showing you?
No, and then eventually I saw it. I like her. This is my podcast.
This one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's just what I was. Oh, my goodness, you were so good. I'll see you online. Finish on your work, final.